Hello and welcome. We are live right now in the CannaBuzz community. And if you're watching us right now on YouTube, thank you so much for watching us on YouTube. Please like and subscribe. We've got a great interview for you today. We are live right now with Teachable from the PDX Summer Sesh. It's an event coming up in Portland, Oregon in just a few days. So we're going to be talking all about that and jumping into the world of live events in the cannabis space, which we love to talk about that kind of stuff. But before we get into it, I've got to give a couple folks some shout outs. First off, shout out to everyone in the CannaBuzz community. We've got a CannaBuzz community. It's like an app, kind of like Instagram, where you can post whatever you want, including your weed stuff. And we go live there when we interview folks like Teachable. We go live and we give away seeds to our live viewers. So anyone who jumps in our live chat and says something, we enter them in to win a pack of seeds, and we send those out regularly. So if you want to be a part of that crew, search CannaBuzz in the App Store, download the app, and sign up and use the code GROWERSLOVE for 50% off your first month. You can join for as little as $4.20 a month, and that helps us keep this thing rolling. Also, I want to give a shout out to our friends over at Grove Bags or Terploc, makers of Grove Bags. And you can go over to grovebags.com, grab a bag just like this, and what you do is you dry your weed in your tent or whatever after you've harvested it. You dry it for, let's say, 10 days or so, and then you put it into a bag just like this, and you let it cure. You don't have to worry about burping or anything like that. You can get rid of all those breakable jars and clunky jars and replace them with bags just like this. Go to grovebags.com and use the code CannaBuzz for 7% off your next order. And then lastly, thank you so much for his support at TikiMadMan. TikiMadMan supporting us for a long time, and he always hits us up with the latest news of his latest deals over at TikiSeeds.com. What's the latest, JR?
This week he is dropping the Tropic Zope, which is the Zope by Pink Z Skittles. And when you purchase this pack of seeds, you actually get a bar of Zope. So there's a bar of soap coming with every purchase of seeds. And he's also doing his 20% off the entire site for the entire summer. So check out TikiSeeds.com. He's always trying to make it fun for the community. You know, everybody needs a little Zope, stay clean.
Awesome. Well, let's see. Teachable is joining us from Portland, Oregon, out there on the West Coast. It's been a little bit warm lately, so I hope you've got. I just had to get a fan right before we jumped on today, but so stoked to hang out with you today. You're putting together an event that's coming up this coming weekend, and let's dive into it. So, JR, what's our first question for Teachable?
Well, first of all, I always ask our guests how they fell in love with the plant and how it's kind of got them on their journey to where they are today.
Yeah, well, that's kind of a juicy one because I've been working with cannabis personally and professionally for 30 years. So I've got kind of a stacked history with it. But I first started smoking when I was 12 years old. I was in central New York, and it was kind of, mid 90s. And so we were dealing with feast or famine kind of market. It's like you either had a bunch of brick weed or nothing at all. And so, through that, I kind of, as I grew up through junior high and high school, I started to align more with the local growers, just got in with the rockers and the hippies. And, those folks weren't smoking brick weed. And that was where I started to really understand all of the intricacies of like the strains and different effects, and just really starting to try to comprehend that. And also understanding that I had an opportunity to actually make some money, and so I kind of just started and just like everybody else does, right? Like you buy like maybe a dime bag or an eighth or something, and then your friends are like, oh, could you grab me one? Or
Yeah.
So it just kind of started like that pretty organically, but I fell in love with it because when I started to actually distribute, I guess. I started seeing the cross section of, folks, all the people I went to school with. It wasn't just, sticking to one clique, right? There was really
Yeah.
no like stoner crowd. It was everybody. And honestly, the jocks were using it more than, anybody else in the school. And that's one thing that I found, in retrospect. I was like, oh yeah, you know what, all those kids were really stressing their bodies and putting their minds and their muscles through, pretty extreme things, and then they were using cannabis to decompress after all of that. So and just from that, I really liked that it was accessible. I also, because I'm an artist, I guess, and just kind of like to experiment with things. I loved that it was kind of subversive too. It was like, yeah, we're doing something that like not everybody's doing. And it's a really cool thing. Because, one, we're forming like a really interesting community connection, but then you have the effects of the plant itself, right? And so as a kid, just trying to figure out the world and make those decisions like what you want to be when you grow up, and having that timeline get shorter and shorter, it was nice to be able to just sit back and hang out with my friends and smoke and just like kind of open up my mind and release that anxiety of, the pressures of becoming a, productive citizen for the rest of your
Yeah, right.
life. But yeah, so then that kind of actually found me up in upstate New York after high school. I went to art schools and just kind of dipped into different community college programs to get kind of technical knowledge and photography and painting and, stuff like that. And that's when I really started to grow and distribute up in the Adirondacks. We did a lot of beasters with the bikers, just coming down from Canada and funneling that down to Albany and New York City. And then we also had a network of local growers, so indoor and outdoor growers. Indoors were kind of cool because we had all of these apartments, and back then apartments in upstate New York were like $200 a month, so you could get a 1 bedroom or a studio and throw several plants in there, and then just had a network of folks that would just check on them, and then obviously do the whole shebang of harvest.
So
what
what kind of strains were you guys using back then?
We had a lot of hazes actually, and just haze crosses. That was also, I think a lot of things were Northern Lights and crossed with Northern Lights, and some skunk too. So, typical kind of 90s vibes. I feel like it was really classic, just what we were dealing with. And honestly, back then too, there's a big question mark on that, right? Like who knows? Because that was kind of like at the very beginning of like internet and all the boards to actually connect. Everybody was just kind of going with whatever they had. And so but that's kind of the majority of stuff was like haze strains and Northern Lights. Let's see. Yeah. And so that got hot though. So I will say that that's how I found myself out on the West Coast. There was a lot of attention on our operation. And so I don't really I talk about pretty ambiguously because I just don't want to like nail down any specific hints of like who was involved or whatever.
Sure.
But so that was getting hot. Then all of a sudden 9/11 happened, right? And like for me, that was just like, get the hell out of here, go.
Yeah.
And so I was just like, okay, I booked a train from New York to Portland. It took about 3.5 days. And
wow.
Yeah. And I just kind of came out here and I was like, I'm putting it away. I'm going to find a school. And I really wanted to get into glass blowing or horticulture or botany or something, because I really believed that cannabis was going to be accessible in the future, and that there were going to be viable jobs, right? Like I had always believed in that. In fact, that was, kind of going back to the high school things, my senior speech on the future was about weed. And it was like, we're stupid not to use this plant for X, Y, and Z. The whole emperor wears no clothes kind of thing. It's like, look at the products that this one plant can provide. And I was like the only one who got a standing ovation, because it was like I was having fun with it, but I was also really serious. I was like, hey, look at where we're headed. And look at what our opportunities are with this cool plant. And people are like, oh yeah, it's a no-brainer. Why wouldn't we do that? So anyway, I put that down for a little bit and came back here, or came out here to Portland, loved it, still stayed away from, kind of interacting with like growing and distribution. So I was more of just a consumer chilling out here, looking for like, a career path and community, and just trying to like get a new life and groove going out here. And so then I kind of got into art, and I went to school at PSU for art history and studio practices. So that's like every medium. And then I went into design and got a master's in collaborative design from PNCA. And that master's is about looking at complex problems and understanding how to disseminate that into different frameworks and solutions to get multiple stakeholders from different perspectives to achieve a common goal. So it is really like strategizing and community building. So those are my two kind of training components, and that's what I bring to the Teachable project.
So when you were in design school, everyone always has that moment of, okay, school's about to end. I better figure this shit out because the loan payments are coming.
Yeah.
Or, whatever your situation is. But you know what I mean? You're making that transition into, like you said, being a productive citizen that pays their bills and doesn't live outdoors. So can you kind of tell us how that whole thing got you into the cannabis space from design school?
Yeah, absolutely. So on that journey, I had several jobs, and by the time I got to design school, I had determined that I really want to be independent. And so that was the goal I set in school, was to start building my own practice. And because of that, when that day came so actually the year before I graduated from with my master's, I started taking clients, and I had mentors to help me understand just how to navigate, just the ins and outs of, providing a service and doing marketing, and just, all of those things that go into supporting somebody else as an independent contractor. So that's when I really just started taking graphic design jobs and different marketing strategy roles. And then when I left school, I actually landed a really big client, and that was really awesome. It was in the electric vehicle space. And so that's where, I got a lot of my chops working with corporate entities and understanding the fast and the slow paces of, corporate strategy, and the mindset that it takes to interact in that space. That was a doozy, because it was an Indian company, and they had folks all over the United States. And so it was a cool after school, you just get thrown to the wolves kind of a project,
Right.
like, oh shit.
Different culture for sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
so talk to us about then how did Teachable come to be, and yeah, what was the impetus to start that?
Yeah. So I was doing so much creative work in a corporate framework and like marketing, right? Like making banners, and I didn't have a creative outlet. So I was like, I have to create a whole platform, because if I don't set aside this segment, then I really am only going to be doing creative work for other people.
Yeah.
So I started Teachable. It's so epic. It's like in August 2017, there was this, solar eclipse, right? And my friends and I were like standing in this river, and the, totality happened, and just like, I don't know, it just came to me because I was getting really frustrated with the messaging that was coming out around legal cannabis. I was like,
Yeah.
this sucks. Like I'm just like, it's kind of boring, but then again, it's also kind of like icky and weird. And like as a consumer, like this doesn't feel right. Like the information kind of feels like somebody who's just figuring it out is like also educating people from a point of authority. And so I just saw that there was an opportunity to share my personal story and say like, hey, you don't have to look like a 90s music video. You don't have to be like a green goddess, or
Yeah.
like, like you don't have to be these archetypes. And it's, honestly, everybody uses cannabis in some sort of way. Or, as we're getting more connected to is like our cannabinoid system, right? And so even if you're not consuming cannabis, the flower and the plant, you're still supporting your cannabinoid system some way. And so with all of that stuff coming out, I was just like, this is boring. This is also really misleading. And just having the background in communications and design, I just saw an opportunity to, like I said, share my story
Yeah.
and inspire people. I wanted campaigns to be better. I wanted parties to be better.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was like, I want to be a part of this community, but like, I don't want to be here, And so like I really just kind of connected with a lot of people. I would just go to events and like align with other folks who had high energy and just, wanted to be social. And we started doing an actual space. So I opened up my studio in 2018, and we had events there. I had the gallery was open at regular hours. People could drop in and sesh. And, towards 2019, we attempted to do a podcast, but it actually just kept getting shut down off of YouTube. And so,
Wow, I wonder what that's like.
Yeah.
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 So, and so it was just kind of like, how do we prioritize? And by we, I mean myself and Teachable as like an
Right.
entity, because the community has grown over the years since it started. But yeah, so we did events, and then we're really ramping up that aspect of Teachable and engaging the community in that way. 2020 happened, and we had so many events actually on the books and people just ready to rip. And then,
Yeah.
we had to shut them down one by one by one. And it was just like, wow. But on top of that, I lost my space too. And that was my live workspace. So like when quarantine was announced, the people who own the building were like, hey, guess what? We actually sold your spot. So you should make a plan to like leave in the next, by the end of the month. And we are like, okay, that's something. So yeah, so we were just like shutting down events. And then like I had to move my business and my household all at once.
Yeah.
So it was just like, whoa. So that's what's really exciting about the Summer Sesh, is that this is our first event back from 2019. So for the past like 3 years, people have just kind of been like, when are you doing this? When are you going to do something again? And so now we're doing it.
Nice, nice. So when you're kind of rallying this community support, especially navigating the rec retail side of things and the maybe, I guess you would say, grower community side of things, how are you bridging those gaps and kind of bringing those folks together?
It really is about the creator community, people who share that common interests, right? I think that was one thing before we started planning the summer sesh, was realizing, it really doesn't matter if you're working in the cannabis industry or if you're working somewhere else. If you're a cannabis consumer, you're a cannabis consumer. And so why draw the line there between
Yeah.
industry and consumer? So that was something that, personally, my experience, when I go to industry events, I'm often representing the consumer voice. But when I go to consumer events, I'm often representing the industry voice because, there's such a crossover here. And it just kind of dawned on me, like, why aren't we together in this? That's been one of the challenges, honestly, of putting on this summer sesh, because the industry is so used to industry parties that everybody wants to bring a table. And for me, I know that networking is way more effective than being tethered to a table. And I
Yeah.
really want us to all like party together. I don't want people to feel like they have to stay stationary or they have to, close a certain amount. But, I want people to, get a GA ticket or a VIP ticket and, wear their brand shirt. Bring them a little bag with your stuff in it. And like when you meet people, like give them something cool, and you don't have to be at a table to do that. So, that's what we're trying to do too, is just really kind of shift how we're interacting with people, make it less transaction oriented and make it more of a connection.
So, I mean, CannaBuzz, we're really happy to be a part of this. I mean, a lot of the community building is going to start happening, I believe, regionally. I don't think there's going to be as many of those giant shows that everyone shows up to as much. And these community events give the opportunity for everyone. And I think this one, especially, an opportunity to meet and interact with each other. A lot of times I feel like you kind of put it, the consumer at the end of the day is just as much a part of our community as the guy who puts the seed in the dirt or wherever he puts it. You know
Yep.
what I mean? From that seed to that consumption, that encompasses everything that is our entire community. And Sam sent a video to me recently, and I was watching it, and it kind of likened our situation to the snake that eats its own tail. And I
Yeah.
like saying that because I think it's a powerful thing. And I think the unification from seed to consumer is something that we all need to get on, because I mean, it's very obvious they're coming for us. You know what I mean? Corporate America is trying to take our way into their way. So I think that easy cultural events are going to be more powerful to everyone and to our message than going into an expo center, sitting behind a table, giving you a free pencil and telling you about my stuff. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So I really appreciate, the opportunity for CannaBuzz and for us to be there. I think it's going to be a super, super good time. So kind of give us a little bit of a market report on how retail is doing in the Portland metropolitan and Oregon area.
Yeah, well, retail is interesting here. I've noticed that well, today is Sunday. So I know a lot of businesses take off on Sundays, but I was driving around doing promotion for the event, right? And just stoking out all the bud tenders. Um, the the retail spaces are pretty quiet. Noticing like, maybe one or two people in there. And then I actually noticed that some aren't even open today and have shortened their hours. So I think that that's like an interesting indicator of how people are kind of shortening their overhead, right? And
Yeah.
kind of trying to compensate for the market prices. Like right now, the biggest issue is the aspergillus testing.
Yeah.
And I don't know how familiar anybody is with that, but this is a aspergillus is this ubiquitous spore that it takes a certain amount of factors to turn into a mycotoxin, but it's completely ubiquitous and completely innocuous. So they're trying to say that our flour that we smoke has to be cleaner than the air we breathe by the time it leaves the farm. And so what's happening is, farmers are they're testing positive for this aspergillus. Part of the policy is that you can remediate that, which looks like fungicide being sprayed on flour or irradiation, right? So changing the profile of the flour altogether. So people are reporting melted trichomes and just like different, just zapping terpene profiles and, essentially changing the integrity of the product. And so after that, you're allowed to test a second time. Uh, there's no guarantee on passing the second time after all of your radiation attempts. And people are failing their second round. And now the other component to that is that the tests are all over the place, really unreliable. However, people's products are hinging on these tests that are unreliable. So we have been active in advocating for the farmers. We have this whole movement of Save Our Sesh, and there's a petition people can sign. You can find it at Teachable.com. It's a pop-up. Just help support our farmers. And that's really what it's about right now, is getting the consumer aware of what industry people are doing, because there's a major disconnect in that retail space. The consumer is totally outside, of the industry knowledge. They're even barely knowledgeable of the products on the shelves, unless you're going to a tip top, high service oriented shop. You're getting, a convenience store or liquor store experience at
Very much.
yeah.
Very
So
much. And if I could speak on the aspergillus thing, it's like the state sets these thresholds, right? And those thresholds are set because there may be products that get to the market that are what we would consider harmful to people. So these thresholds are set. So then other folks take those thresholds and they use those as tools to demise our outdoor and all of the legacy providers that have been providing good cannabis to folks for eons. And so now we're looking at a situation where these rules and these regulations, what it's going to do is exactly what it did in Canada. When they went through all of their irradiation processes and all that bullshit, all it did is decimate their legal market and decimated their their retail market. And so if those things, and if I'm not mistaken, I think 11 or 15 other states have jumped on to this what I would say really out of control threshold. And so what they're doing is they're systematically removing the farmers that have been part of this process in an attempt, in my opinion, to bring it into the corporate manufacturing of cannabis. And if they continue down that radiation path or irradiating it, it will decimate their market, because I'm certainly going to go to my homie down the street who's got the fucking fire, who grows it in his basement, before I go buy some irradiated fungicide bullshit off a shelf somewhere. And so I think that whole transition for, again, our community as a whole, because we are all a part of that. The industry that supports all those people, all of that is a part of this bigger picture that I think all those things are at stake. And I think the community building behind that is the important issue. And I appreciate you bringing up the aspergillus thing in the market, because that is going to be a tool they will try to use to decimate our legacy growers.
Yeah.
So, Alicia, let's dive into the PDX Summer Sesh. Let's dive into all about it in our last kind
let's
of
party
the
now.
last half of the interview here that we have for you this afternoon. So yeah, tell us what folks should expect at the PDX Summer Sesh.
Yeah, we have so we're having a party where we can all get to know each other or get reacquainted with one another. So at the very core, it's just all love. This is being built by community for the community. So, everybody's pitching in. Like today, later on today, we're rolling up our sleeves and just kind of cleaning up the neighborhood around the venue and just like getting everything all ready. So, it's like that kind of vibe. We kind of have like the movie montage moments going, and it's super fun. But like, so when people get there, we have a VIP experience that kicks off a little earlier than the main party. But folks for VIP will get a really nice performance by Dick Fitz, who's like a space-based psychedelic rock performer. And so that'll be happening upstairs when folks can preview the brand new space. So they'll get kind of first looks of at the new social club, first dabs of the night. So the dab bar is set up, and then we're going to have folks from Kalia there just kind of, doing their thing, celebrating hash and all of its beautiful terpene profiles and just fun stuff that's loaded into that. We do have, and then folks will get tours of the whole space as VIP food and some vendors upstairs too. We don't want to give everything away for the VIP experience, but it's going to be a good one. And then in the main lot downstairs, that's going to be our outdoor area. We're going to kick off the event with a DJ, Big Green Jones Show, who's an awesome DJ in Portland. We are celebrating locals with this. So we're getting, folks who have been putting their work out into the community for years, and they're coming to celebrate cannabis with all of us together. So we'll have a Big Green Jones Show doing a big set in the main stage, and then later in the evening, right at sunset, we have the venue faces the Fremont Bridge. And if you've ever seen the Fremont Bridge, it's a really impressive arch. So we'll be right there at the base. The sun will be going down, and then Tigers on Opium will come on and just give us that just droney, stoner rock vibe, and we can all light up or do whatever our choice of consumption is and just like enjoy the show. We have some cool vendors for people to interact with. I was like, okay, Actually, JR got the one cannabis vendor spot. You got it.
Yeah.
But everybody else, I really just wanted, I wanted rec folks just to like participate and like feel like they can party and relax and have a good time. So our vendors are all about giving us like a cool experience or just like a nice service. So we have Bleached by Josh, which are just like really cool clothes. This kid from Portland that I'm obsessed with does like bleach style tie-dye and just pattern painting on garments. And so those will be there. So people can, get dressed up if they like. And then we've got uh holy cannoli cannolis, and so
Nice. That's
those
hard
are
to
going to be
say.
nice. You can roll up a cannoli and roll up a fatty and just like, yeah, just have a good time. And then Jay will be there. Jay with Apis Labs will be there, and Sesh Creative will be there. We also have Alibi and Utopia and Real Eve Farms being represented from the rec side. Those won't be vendors, but they're sponsors, and they're showing their support of the community, which, that's kind of what the main point of the sponsors were, just showing like, hey, who are the businesses that want to be a part of a community?
Yeah.
Oh, like,
Shout out to Relief Farms. Shout
yeah,
out to Relief Farms.
yeah. No,
Big
I love,
Jim.
yeah, I love them. And yeah, I definitely love Jim. Like, Jim has been really instrumental in just cheering the event on and, helping get the word out and just like doing some heavy lifting here and there, and so just
Yeah.
yeah, he's awesome.
He'll be a guest coming up here in a couple episodes.
Cool.
We're gonna kind of dive back into some of that stuff we were talking about earlier. But
Yeah.
can you tell us a little more about the Tigers of Opium? Because I listened to some of their tracks, and I'm telling you, they're amazing.
Yeah.
You went and saw them. How was the show?
Yeah, I saw them on Thursday. They just hit me up and they're like, "Hey, we're playing Dante's, which is a club downtown in Portland." They're like, "You should, show up." And so I was just like, "Okay, yeah, why not? I'll go check you out." And because I've been listening to them, and I'm like, "Yeah, I dig their sound," And so I went, and their show is just really fun. They have such a good energy that, even if you don't like, if you've never heard them before, they're just, I don't know, their lineup of songs is just kind of, it's definitely like stoner metal vibes, but then there's
Yeah,
like different, they mix it up in a nice way that like if you have never heard them before, you'd be like, oh, this is cool. I like
yeah.
this, and then you could get into it. So I think they're going to be a really great choice for this crowd because
I think so too. And I like the way that, you could kind of get a vibe off them from almost every decade, from the 60s
yeah,
almost up to now. Pretty wild. I mean, really good sound. I thought they're, even the video they have out, like I checked them out on YouTube and stuff, and
cool.
really good. Stoked to hear it. Can't wait
Yeah.
to see it. So, tell us about some of the food again. I'm really interested in the cannoli lady. Tell us about that.
Yeah, the cannoli lady, Shannon, is awesome. I met her at the Mississippi Street Fair. We're going to have some honeybee lemonade. And then we're gonna have just an array of like summer snacks and munchies. So, just like barbecue style to stoner style, getting, yeah, just an eclectic mix of different Portland foods.
Yum.
Yeah.
It'll be
Uh,
a good time.
yeah, it is going to be a really fun time and yeah, packed with little surprises. There are some more vendors too. Kinks by Brinks, that's a fun one. They've got some kind of flirty and fun accessories, and she just came out with a new like massage candle, so that'll be a fun thing for people to kind of look at and try out. And then we will have blunts by Mel too. So if you want somebody to roll you up something really special, or if you bring flour to the event, because it is a consumption event inside and out, you can bring your own cannabis. So if you want somebody to roll it up for you, there'll be somebody there who can roll up, and you can choose a wrap and have something unique.
And let's shout out to the fact that we actually get to have a consumption event.
Yeah, I know. Well, that's the thing, is like we're going to consumption events all the time in Portland, right?
Right.
Like you go to your friend's house, and you get
Right.
going on and you smoke some weed. Or
Right.
even if you go to an industry thing, there's always like a smoking section. But
Yeah.
it's like there's this gray area, and I don't know, I think nobody wants to breach that, but it doesn't seem to be a real thing. If it's private, then it's legit. It's not out in the public. It's, you're doing adult things with a bunch of other consenting adults.
Yeah, and we're finding like just outside the city limits, there's a lot of farms and venue spaces that folks are really cool about, And
Yeah.
so, if you're really wanting to do something, maybe don't look right inside the middle. Just go maybe check out what people have to offer. So tell us more about the actual the event, and then beyond the event, the lounge and stuff like that, what your plans are with that.
Yeah, so part of this event is that it's previewing the space. So we are going to have a lot of opportunities to gain insights from folks who are attending. Um, what we are planning on doing is, it is a social club. So we'll have some regular hours where people can drop in and sesh. But one of the things that really we want to do is encourage everybody as a community to go support other businesses and things that are happening around town. And so
Yeah.
you can show up at other social lounges, because they're opening too, right? Like that's starting to become more prevalent here in town. And so we can show up at other social lounges, but we can also show up to concerts, or different events in Portland, or different restaurants, and we can just keep on having these events and showing that cannabis consumers really contribute to the economic prosperity of the
Right.
entire city. And so we want to really just like as Teachable, so this is a little like more Teachable leaning kind of influence, but having the consumer involved and really educated and involved with interacting with cannabis, that's where we can have more leverage as a community, as voters, as people who are showing up and physically spending money, visibly encouraging economic growth and just good quality values, and really saying like, okay, hey, this is a big community that's making an impact, and these are the things that we want to see. And so that's an extension of the social club, that it's just like, yeah, that's the power of getting us all together.
I'm so excited. I cannot wait. I'm bringing Uncle Jim with me,
Cool.
and he's 73-year-old retired Navy guy who
Awesome.
started growing cannabis about 4 or 5 years ago. And it's gonna blow his mind. I took him to Emerald Cup last year, and we got to go to the music, and E40 was there that night. So that was his first time experiencing that. So now I'm really excited for him to come experience this. It is going to blow his mind. I'm so stoked to be there. It's going to be such a good time.
Yeah, we're gonna have so much fun.
Right on.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a really great interview, and really great to hear all about the event and what's coming up just in a handful of days. as of the recording of this, so it's coming up soon. We'll get this up on YouTube in the next day or two. I can get this out there real quick so that we can help get the word out.
Awesome.
But
Thank you.
you know, on that note, where should people check out your stuff? Like, you know, what websites, your Instagrams or whatever? Plug all the things, basically.
Yeah, so check out what we're doing at teachable.com. We are on Instagram as at Teachable World, Teachable_world. And then you can connect with me on LinkedIn. We talk about some more industry aligning things on LinkedIn at, Alicia Navarrete.
Awesome. Very
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, I was just looking at the comments from our live stream viewers. Like I said at the top of the show, we've got our CannaBuzz community in our app. And so I was just going to give a shout out to Crazy Pop Mom. She said, she's a great guest. Love her energy, is what she said.
Oh, thank you.
Hey,
And yeah, and shout out to MacBuds and Big Bad Badger and everyone else hanging out in the live chat today. Let's see, JR, did you have any last questions before we get into our kind of wrapping things up?
I do have one question. How did you get the name Cheech, and how did you get Teachable?
Okay, you really want to know. Okay, so one time I was like hanging out with my friends. We were all camping, and my friend started calling me Cheech all night, and then everybody was calling me Cheech. And so like by the end of the night, I was like, dude, why are you calling me Cheech all the time? And he's just like, no pants, hella weed. And so I didn't realize it, but I was just like, I mean, we were by the river all day. So I was just wearing a bathing suit and a fanny pack. And so I had a fanny pack just filled with buds and like, joints and shit. And so I was just like kept blazing. And so, yeah, he called me Cheech, but that was actually the first tagline of the Teachable zine was no pants, hella weed.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I do love that. I wish you were coming up, Q. We're not that far. You should hop on up and join us this weekend.
That'd be cool. Yeah, no, I'm glad to hear that there's a social scene. And I guess my last question, I guess real quick too. It sounds like where you're at that the social clubs or like people or places where people can consume cannabis, they don't have to be tied to like a dispensary or whatever. It can just be like its own thing. That's really cool.
Yes, and they shouldn't be attached to a dispensary. There are a couple that are, but that is really just having. So I've been working with like the gray area. I've been massaging the gray area since 2018. So
Yeah.
That's a tricky one. People are adjacent, but if you have to have a separate business entity. Here's a gem for all of you. You have to have a separate business entity and a separate address. So you have to be able to claim like, hey, they have nothing to do with me.
Interesting. So Oregon's required that they be separate then, is that what you're saying?
Well, it is illegal to have a cannabis lounge. So, technically they're social
Okay.
clubs, they're private membership clubs, but we have no policy or regulations around lounges outside of the fact that if you do have a liquor license, you cannot have cannabis anywhere on your premises. But this is also a little gem for any Oregon coffee shops that want to support cannabis. You absolutely, if you do not have a liquor license, you can provide hospitality, provide ashtrays, provide a little spot where people can light up. And
What?
if you do it behind, according to the Clean Air Act, if you're not visible by public and you have open air flowing in the space, then you're good to go. There's no conflict of interest.
That's cool.
Again, this is massaging the gray area,
Yeah.
but there's not a roadblock there. So
That's
I
cool.
would like to encourage people who don't have liquor licenses to show up more in the community and support folks who might need a place to smoke.
Yeah. Keep pushing for all of our listeners and viewers. Keep pushing for rules like this. The reason why I brought this up is because I wanted to open up my own social club where I live in California, but California requires that they be a part of a dispensary. So you have to have a dispensary license to be able to allow cannabis consumption. And that just makes it, not possible. You have to be like a multi-millionaire to be able to even try that. So anyways, I'm nonetheless, I just love seeing more social consumption spaces. I go to some of the ones in downtown San Francisco, after work or whatever, and really enjoy that. So I would love to see that become more of a thing across the whole US, so that people can have these social spaces, because there's so many times where I just want to hang out and do something and be with people, but I don't want it to have to be all around alcohol. And that's what so much of adult life is, just revolving around alcohol in terms of the social context. And so I'm excited to see projects like this and events like this, and just help create more space for cannabis folks.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys watch many Flintstone cartoons, but it just reminds me of the Water Buffalo Club. We're just going to have to all go to these clubs with our cool hat on, to just join the club and hang out with our crews, right?
Yeah.
Is that probably how all the Elks, the Moose, the Legion, is that probably just for dudes to go get drunk?
Basically.
Probably.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's basically what it is.
Smoke cigs and get drunk,
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly what that is. It's like, oh wait, if we just pool our dues, then we can start a bar that
we can own our own. Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with us today, Teachable or Alicia. We really appreciate your time today. I know, like I said, that we had a lot of good comments here in the live chat today. And then, like I said, make sure, if you're watching this, make sure to follow the event, look it up. If you're in the Portland area, or you're in Oregon, or even up in Seattle, take a train down or take a couple hour drive or whatever it is down to Portland and hang out. It sounds like a great day.
Thanks for having me, guys. It was really nice meeting you. We'll see everybody at the sesh.
We will sesh.
Well, as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching today. We had a great one. Make sure to like the video. It helps make sure that other people see the video. Join the community. We'd really appreciate it if you join the CannaBuzz community. And again, shout out to Terploc, the makers of Grove Bags. Use that code 7% off, use the code CannaBuzz for 7% off. And then also thanks to our friend TikiMadMan over at tikiseeds.com. And as always, thanks everyone for watching, and growers love.
Growers love.